This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Wilmette Appearance Review Commission. Mr. Sievertson, will you please call the roll?
Nada Andrick,
Here.
Richard Brill,
Here.
Devin Castellano,
Here.
Doug Johnson,
Here.
Asa Miller, President Jeffrey Saad,
Here.
and Charles Smith.
Yes, present. Thank you, Lucas. This meeting is being conducted remotely via Microsoft Teams, as we all know. For those watching this video in the future, the state of Illinois is currently under a stay-at-home order issued by Governor Pritzker due to the coronavirus pandemic. As a result, all in-person governmental meetings have been canceled. However, the Opens Meeting Act now permits electronic meetings of governmental bodies, and this evening we are conducting our business in compliance with the state law. As usual, this meeting is being broadcast live on our local cable access Channel 6. It is also being broadcast on the internet on YouTube Live. To participate in the meeting, you can join through Microsoft Teams. Visit the village's website at www.wilmette.com and find the calendar event for the Appearance Review Commission meeting. There is a link for you to join the meeting. You may also submit your comments through YouTube Live. A member of the village staff will read your comment to the Appearance Review Commission. All comments to the Appearance Review Commission will be recorded in the meeting minutes as we typically do. For our meeting guests joining by Teams, when you are not speaking, please keep your device muted to minimize disruptions of the proceedings and your video turned off so that the board members can see. The cases we shall hear this evening will be heard in the order set forth in the published agenda. When your case is called, please state your name and address and provide a brief presentation of your proposal. The commissioners will have received the staff report, which includes the plans and drawings and images that you've submitted. After the presentation by the applicant, the commission will ask any questions they have of the application. Once the commission has asked their questions, they will open up the floor to others who wish to speak on the application. I will recognize each attendee to ask if you have a comment, so please wait to be called upon. Everyone will be permitted to have their say, though we would ask you keep your comments as short and to the point as possible. Any comments received through the YouTube chat, Teams chat, or email will be read into the record at this time. After we've heard all oral presentations, I will close the evidence and the members of the board will discuss what they've heard and take a vote. Once the evidence is closed, no further testimony on an application may be offered. The only people entitled to speak during that part of the proceeding will be the members of the commission. If you are here and plan to testify tonight, I would ask that you raise your right hand and at this time be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that you will tell the truth in the testimony that you are about to give? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Sievertson, will you please call our first case?
Yes, first time on the agenda would be the approval of the February 1st, 2021 meeting minutes.
Could I ask for a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Brill. Lucas, if you could call the roll, please.
Nada Andrick,
Here.
Richard Brill,
Yes.
Devin Castellano,
Yes.
Doug Johnson,
Yes.
Jeffrey Saad,
Yes.
and Charles Smith.
Approved, yes. Thank you. And next on our agenda is the consent item.
Yes, case 2021 AR10 for 1100 Central. Petitioner's One Magnificent Med Spa. They're replacing their wall sign and same location as the existing.
So I will ask the commission if there are any questions generally about this consent agenda item. Hearing none, Lucas, I do have a question. You said it's replacing the existing sign. Is the existing sign the same profile, dimension, and location?
Same dimension. The profile will be slightly different because they'll be applying a new thin profile PVC panel, which should be adhered to the existing sign panel.
Okay, thank you.
So it'll be a small dimension, a couple millimeters.
Very good. Okay, is there a motion? To approve the
Okay.
consent item?
I move we accept the consent agenda item.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Stevenson, if you could please call the roll.
Nana Endrick,
Yes.
Richard Brill,
Yes.
Devin Castellano,
Yes.
Doug Johnson,
Yes.
Jeffrey Saad,
Yes.
and Charles Smith.
Approved, yes. Thank you very much, everyone. Mr. Stevenson, could you please call our first case for the evening?
Sure. Case 2021 AR 05 for 1150 Central Avenue. The petitioner is Central Station Coffee and Tea, requesting an amended appearance review certificate to specify exterior materials, as well as a sign variation to install more than one window sign per frontage. As you recall, at the last meeting, this case was reviewed. It was approved with the exception of the material for the the trim and base material on the storefront. That was continued to this meeting. And then also due to just notice requirements associated with the sign variation, that discussion was not taking place until this meeting. So the applicant is here. If you'd like to, Katie, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and if you'd like to add anything more.
Hi, I'm Katie Deegan, owner of Central Station Coffee and Tea, and I would just like to say I'm ecstatic to be back. It's nice to see you all again. And I think as far as the exterior, I'll turn that over to David, my architect with O'Kelly Kasparek again, and then I can answer questions about the sign.
Thank you. David Kasparek. I think my display probably, I'm on a borrowed computer, so my display may say something else. Anyway, we have, per the direction of the commission here, we have changed, if you look on the elevation page of our submittal, we are now showing hardy panels and 3.5-inch hardy trim, which is what I see from your meeting notes and your minutes is your recommended finish from our last presentation, and so we've committed to make that change. We talked to the contractor. He should be able to source it, so I think that should hopefully solve the concerns of the commission on the cladding for under the storefront.
Thank you, David, very much. Appreciate that. We obviously are well aware of the design and the case since it was before us last month. Appreciate you coming back and welcome back. I will ask our commissioners if one by one, if there are questions or comments. I'll start with Mr. Saad, please.
Yeah, was there any response to the entry in the back, or did we resolve that last time?
That was resolved last time, just
Okay.
that is going to be an accessible entrance. And I did talk to, I guess just for your information, since our last meeting, I did talk to the landlord and confirm that they were working on having that accessible parking space installed. So that is in fact something that they're working on.
Great.
And they've already been talking to contractors about having that done once the asphalt plant's open.
Great. And then the only thing from the elevations, I know we were talking about the conduit going through the awning previously. Is this just a signage elevation and it's still the same concept?
Yes.
It's just not shown going through. Okay. I don't have any other comments.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, just one question. The oval sign, are they white or translucent except for the letters, or what do they look like?
The signage is actually, so it'll be a clear applique. The line work is a gold, or is a reference to a polished metallic finish. The actual material and you know the actual piece will be based on where Ms. Deegan sources her, who she uses to make the applique and so on. But it's intended to be a sort of a brass-looking metallic material.
Good. Yeah, that's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Castellano.
I was not at the last meeting, but I'm assuming the lighting levels were discussed and the materials were reviewed, so I do not have any comments.
Thank you. Ms. Andre.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. When it says hardy panel, I also was not here for the last presentation. When it says hardy panel and the trim of it for pre-finished Arctic white, that's the side. What is the hardy panel made of?
It's a cement fiber board. A link was sent along in my email that I sent. I sent a link to, which hopefully was distributed to everybody. You can click on and take into the manufacturer's website. It's a material that's basically used. You see it in siding, I assume throughout the village and so on. So, but it's a cement fiber mix.
So it's a weatherproof.
It's meant for exterior use.
Weatherproof. So is that the infill or the entire, it's a print out, the complete thing is a stamp? What's the frame made of?
So it is, so they make a trim board that is a 3.5 inch by, I think, a 1/2 inch deep trim board. So it's all made by the same manufacturer.
Oh, so this whole thing is a one panel.
Well, it's, yes, it can be one panel. It will depend on how the contractor installs it. He may cut the panels up and then put the trim pieces around it to cover the seams.
So you're saying that the frame and the infill are the same material?
Correct.
Okay. And only other question I have is the finish on the entry door. Is it paint in
Yes.
place?
Yes, it's the existing door being repainted.
Okay. And the signage about the door, what finish is that?
The signage above the door is printed onto the valance of the.
Yes.
Of
printed. You're saying it is printed.
front of the
I see.
awning.
Okay.
Printed,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nada. Nada, just so you and Devin know, the applicant came forward in our last meeting, as the minutes state, and they had a PVC material at the base below the windows. We requested something sturdier for the village. We've had other applicants in nearby renovation projects have a similar glass reinforced product put down there. So that's what the response has been. Thank you for doing that. I think the proportions look quite nice, David. So that's quite good. Last meeting, you made the statement that the sides of the canopy you thought were going to be enclosed. Is that, are you able to confirm that?
Yeah, yes, no, we're intending to enclose them, yes.
Okay, very good, very good. That was it was a statement that it likely would, but you're confirming that it will now. Thank you. The variation for the sign for fellow commissioners is because there are two signs, the Central Station Coffee and Tea, the village requirements allow one. In this case, there are two, which covers less percentage of the than the maximum allowable as if there were one. So it's split. I did want to, in theory, the intent is to have a burden that the applicant is responding to ask for a variation. In this case, I don't know necessarily that there is a burden. I think, and I'd like to ask the applicant, either Katie or David, if is the reason there are two for symmetry, or what is the goal of not having just one?
Well, I can answer briefly for part of it. Trying to capture that creativity and aesthetic of what we're trying to do in the signage, and also be able to advertise to the public as going by with just one sign doesn't really allow us to do that. And is to most cost effectively advertise at this time, because we're not allowed to touch those glass transoms, which is why we're putting up the awning to put just one larger sign. This is what we chose. I don't know if David wants to elaborate on that.
I think a couple of things. One, it looked better in our mind's eye than having the two signs and the one sign, first of all, just aesthetically. Secondly is, for pedestrian traffic walking along the, on the sidewalk parallel to the storefront, depending on which direction you're coming from, you only had one sign, and depending which side of the door it's on, you're conceivably walking past the door before you even see the sign. So there's a little bit of a practical piece there. So I think there's a couple of things, but above and beyond that, I think it just aesthetically is more pleasing from our standpoint.
I happen to like it, if I could just have an opinion.
If I could just state from a code standpoint, one of the reasons why they're allowed to do a slightly larger window sign is because they're foregoing the wall sign or an awning, a larger awning sign. So that's part of the reason why the larger window sign is being proposed, because they're not doing something that would, most businesses do have some sort of wall or larger awning sign, which is kind of their primary sign, because there's no large primary sign for this building. They're choosing to go with sort of two smaller window signs.
Thank you for that clarification. I also want to confirm that inside the oval, where there is not a coffee cup or lettering, that is transparent glass, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so understanding that, and I want to compliment you on the delicacy of the sign. I think it is quite nice as well. And the transparency it will offer is very notable. To see the people inside enjoying themselves will be, I think, a nice amenity for the passerby. So Thank you. I will, we are bound to look at the standards of the,
Yeah, Charles, as you haven't called on me yet. I
I'm
have
sorry,
a question. Yeah, I appreciate if you could call on me at some point to ask some questions.
yes, I apologize. I missed, you're right in the middle and I skipped over Devin to you on my screen.
Okay, I had a few questions which were addressed by fellow commissioners. I appreciate that. The remaining question is, the variance we're looking for is having 2 signs instead of 1. And are there other retail businesses in Wilmette that have 2 signs or multiple signs? Do any of the fellow commissioners or Lucas know?
Yeah, there are. I'm trying to think of. There are not too many businesses that I can think of that only have a window sign. The businesses that I'm thinking of would be the Big Tomato, and they do have 2 window signs. The other business that I'm thinking of would be, which is a little bit unique, but the commission reviewed this in 2019, and that's a case for the Pediatric Associates. They actually have technically 7 window signs because they have sort of a graphic that they put across the entire window, partially to provide some level of screening, but also just to add some character to be a otherwise kind of stark office building. Being a pediatric center, they wanted to add some element of design to the front of it. So while it's a little bit different case, they do have several signs on their window. Most businesses have either a wall sign or a window sign, or sorry, a wall sign or an awning, a larger awning sign. So this is a little bit unique in that respect.
Okay.
Well, I mean, this is a
Since we
question.
do have precedent, I'm comfortable with it.
Sophia has 2.
Oh, okay.
Thank
We
you.
have a blade sign and a wall sign.
Mr. Brill, any further questions or comments?
No, thank you, Charles.
Thank you. As I look over the certificate standards of review, all 16 items, this obviously is facing the street, and we talked about and covered the 360-degree items last time. So I believe we're in good shape relative to the standards. I'd like to ask for a motion, please.
I move that we approve the sign variation as described, as well as the hardy panels material.
Is there a second?
Second.
And just, sorry, just one thing, I just wanted to clarify that the commission will be providing us an approval of the certificate, and the variation, the sign variation, will be a recommendation that goes to the village board.
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Lucas, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Nada Endrick?
I just want to reiterate again that I find it very gracious, and I am very grateful for you for making this store look so presentable and nice. We are looking forward for you to open, and I say yes.
Richard Brill?
Yes.
Devin Castellano?
Yes.
Doug Johnson?
Yes.
Mason's absent. Jeffrey Saad?
Yes.
And Charles Smith?
Yes.
And then because this is a variation case that will be going to the village board, would one of the commissioners like to authorize the chairman to approve the report to the village board?
Move to authorize. Move to authorize.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I'll just call the roll quick. Nada Andrick,
Yes,
Richard Brill,
Yes.
Devin Castellano,
Yes.
Doug Johnson,
Yes.
Jeffrey Saad,
Yes.
and Charles Smith.
Yes.
Great. So the certificate is approved and the variation will be going to, the signed variation will be going to the March 23rd Village Board.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Stevenson, could you please call our next case?
Yes. Next case is 2021 AR09 for 1146 Wilmette Avenue. The petitioner's Sophia Stake requesting approval for a new entryway. They're proposing to remove the existing storefront entrance and replace it with a new revolving door with accessible entrance. And the commission, this is a preliminary review, but if there's any comments or questions that the commission has, the applicant would like to know them at this time. I believe the applicant is here to present.
Yeah, so I'm Glenn Kiefer. I'm here on behalf of Ryan O'Donnell and myself. And I'm going to be turning this over to our architect, Steve Weiss, in just a minute. But I would just like to say that, as you can imagine, with this cold winter and the social distancing that we've had to do inside the restaurant, every little bit counts. And our goal is to make the environment more comfortable for our guests while being mindful of the streetscape that's being fixed and changed and making our street better coming up in March. So we'd like to have the revolving door because it'll keep the cold out, quite frankly. And I think it will add a nice dimension to the entry to the building. It's going to be matching. It's the same coloration as the existing windows that we have. It's an anodized black. The actual revolver is wood, stained oak paneling. And it'll match very well with what we have going on with the trifold windows. And with that, unless you have any questions for me directly, I'd like to turn it over to Steve Weiss.
Thanks, Glenn, and thank you to the commission for hearing us. This is obviously, it would be seemingly a straightforward project of replacing some swing doors with a revolver and the exit door, the egress door next to it. However, because of the shape of the restaurant, the shape of the space, it's a little more complicated. There are two plans that were submitted to you. One is called A2 and one is labeled A2A. They both contain the revolver and the required egress door. In the first one, in A2, we have flushed out the entire wall. The the oak revolving door and drum are flush to the face of the building, and the storefront that contains the egress door are also flush. So it's a straight wall, so to speak. The difference between the two is that in the second plan, in order to keep the egress door from swinging across the property line, which was a village concern, in order to make that fit, we turned the storefront slightly and push the swinging door, the egress door, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the south. Our preference is the flush, is A2, the flush scheme. And the reason for that is it gives us a smooth storefront, a smooth wall. It also allows us not to have an alcove, so to speak, at the front of the building, an alcove that can end up collecting trash, collecting leaves, just being a little darker. Also, the shape of the glazing is a little less complex in the flush scheme. Because of the turn, there's a little bit more window, a little bit more metal, and a few more pieces in order to make the whole thing work. And it just seems a little bit excessive compared to what we gain. The materials are, as Glenn mentioned, the storefront that contains the swinging door and the framing around it is anodized aluminum, dark anodized aluminum, which will match the folding windows to the left. The revolving door itself is mill-made. It's oak with clear glass and oil-rubbed bronze hardware and an oak drum. And the panel to its right, which fills in a triangular space between the drum and the wall to the north, is the same oak. That panel will be a solid, a smooth oak panel, and with no seams and no fasteners. It'll be fastened from the back, and it will contain there is now a menu board on the wall to the left of the existing doors. A similar menu board, maybe a little smaller than the existing one, will be mounted on that oak panel. And I expect you'll want to see that, and so we'll have that in the drawing for our final review next month. I believe samples of the oak have been submitted to Lucas, so you have an idea of the material, but the idea is that it's black stained oak. It'll be highly finished, and of course finished with a polyurethane that protects it from the weather. And with that, any questions or comments, we greatly appreciate.
Thank you, Steve and Glenn, for your overview. I'd like to go one by one, give our commissioners an opportunity to voice any questions. Mr. Brill, I'd like to start with you this time.
Okay, thank you. The two plans look clear. They look one way or another like a good solution for the restaurant. I really don't have questions of this.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Andrek.
Okay, I agree with Mr. Weiss's preference with A2, keeping it flush. And I spent a couple minutes the other day looking at this whole elevation right there in place. And one of the questions that I have is if you can elaborate, where did the stained oak come from?
That is they use that same millwork, I believe, in other parts of the restaurant. I'm going to have to defer to Glenn because I'm actually not positive about the answer to that.
I see.
Yeah,
So-
that's true. We have wainscoting inside the restaurant that has the same finish, as well as our pocket doors in between our private spaces.
So I have a couple of questions regarding that. What is it the real oak veneer?
Veneer plywood, oak veneered plywood, yes.
But is it open pore or closed pore? And you're talking about being polyurethane over oak. I need a little more understanding of that.
Yeah, I understand. I think exactly what you're saying. It won't be so finished and processed that the grain goes away. It won't look like, what we don't want it to look like is wood grain trespa. We want it to be oak and to have the feel of oak. So it won't be filled grain. It will be open grain when it's stained, but it will be stained dark. The revolver, which is partly fabricated, is solid oak. The stiles are solid oak. It's quite beautiful. And those will also be finished the same way.
I have to say that there was something very nice and very strong about your black and white scheme that you have currently. And I only assume that this oak is going to blend as a, not as a third element, but as a variation on a theme. I'm worried a little bit about this becoming, you know, you have a little transom of oak and then glass above it. So it started to look a little complicated. But I'm willing to hear what my fellow commissioners are saying. But I think that you have a winning elevation right now. Your restaurant looks very strong, very nice, and so interested in keeping that experience. So let me hear what anybody else has to say.
Thank you, Nada. Ms. Castellano.
I was just going to ask, so that the oak panel above the revolving door, is that concealing the frame of the revolving door?
Yes, that's the drum. It is flush. It's not curved out in front of the drum. It's flush in the storefront, so to speak, so that it's flat. But yes, it's the drum of the revolver.
And then the only other question I had in terms of it, so if the door itself is going to be a solid oak, and then did you say that the paneling is a different is it the sorry, an engineered product?
No. The whole point of it is that we want it to be oak. It's oak veneered plywood.
Okay.
So it will match the color and grain and be the same finish.
And
Finish
this-
by the same people as the revolver.
And then, so those will, the maintenance schedule would be the same for those as well, in terms of, you know, restaining and upkeep.
Yes, the revolver might, you know, they get beat up pretty heavily, but yes.
Sure. That was going to be my only, I'm sure, you know, the intention is to keep it, you know, the entrance looking pristine. So I'm sure there'll be some maintenance, but that's coming with using a natural material. That was it for questions.
And Devin, I also just wanted to follow up on that comment. They are proposing brass at the, looks like maybe the bottom, I don't know if it's quite 12 inches, but the bottom of the wood is proposed to be brass, which would be matching some of the, I believe, the hardware of the revolving door.
And that's, that may be a little out of date. We're talking about oil rubbed bronze rather than brass. So not bright yellow, but darker patinaed bronze or patinated bronze.
Okay, and that's for all of the base as well as the hardware?
Yes, as well as the push and pull. Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson.
The question that obviously comes to mind. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Mr. Johnson, we can't hear you.
Okay, just a second. Let me see if I can.
You're on mute.
He's kind of.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. How complex. The question that obviously comes to mind is the outward swinging accessible door. We've had occasion to recently review that issue, and I agree from a design sense that the one that's not inset looks better. I think a big difference here than some of the considerations we've had is that it is a glass panel door and it is for accessible use. So I think we're getting down to a gnat's eyebrow on it, because I think we need to make sure we follow our precedent and comments. But I think with its use as an accessible door, and I would ask if it's only openable once somebody opens it from the inside, I think the look is better and the glass makes it safe, sufficiently safe.
Thank you.
And Doug, if I could just, I'm sorry, Charles. I just want to follow up on that topic while we're discussing it. So that's part of the issue of the door swinging onto the public sidewalk is an issue not contained in the zoning ordinance. So it's not something that we would be able to provide a variation for. However, I can bring the issue up to the village engineer and see if this is an issue. I've already done that sort of preliminarily with the village engineer, especially when we discussed this for the other storefront a couple of months ago. But that would be somewhat of a decision that he would need to make. It would certainly help if the commission was supportive of it. And I can talk to both the village engineer and the village attorney if need be, to see if that's something that they can provide some kind of waiver around.
Right, Lucas. I appreciate that. I am concerned about our precedent, though. And making sure we're consistent on that. So I think it needs to be clear in our minds and in the village attorneys and engineers' mind that what we're doing is thoughtful and can be repeated in the future. Otherwise, I think the other design is fine. It would be more consistent with the view we've taken, and this is supposed to be a more active pedestrian downtown way. So, that mitigates in that decision favor.
Thank you. Mr. Saad?
Yeah, I think Mr. Johnson just sort of preluded to what I was going to say of the option A2, where the door swings out into the public way. And we were very opposed to that previously on another option being presented to us. Glass or solid, irrelevant. It was encroaching on the public way out of the property line onto the sidewalk. So I'm in the same place with that question of the precedents that we're trying to create. And also with the elevation you have and with the sign above and no awning, with it being flushed, you're losing what you had previously of that 4-foot depth of a sort of safe haven of coming to the building and being covered. So I wondered if we went with the flush door, went with the revolver, would next sort of trigger a canopy or something because you want people covered as they're coming into the space as well. I don't know if this is something that you thought about or not, but before there was a 4-foot plus depth to get into the building. In option 2A, I think it does work, and you probably looked at this option, but did you look at a door at the midpoint of the revolver that's approximately the 3.5 foot back at the center line of the revolver to sort of recess that door rather than having it at an angle and have a little enclosed area, or did that not fit when you tried to do that option?
Physically, the door would fit, but it wouldn't be accessible. It wouldn't be ADA compliant.
16-inch on the pull side. Yep.
12 inches on the pull side.
Yep.
And so it had to be pushed out as far. I mean, it just worked pretty much exactly.
Yep.
Without inches to spare.
Yep. Okay. I mean, to me, 2A is more consistent of what we've done previously, where 2, it's maybe a little cleaner, but I have questions of sort of what's going to happen next after you do that iteration.
Could I follow up a bit on that? As I'm looking at the drawings here, the issue seems to be the placement of the wall inside. And if that were straightened out, and I know that takes table space and that's an issue, does that solve the issue of being able to inset that door a couple of 2.5 feet like we did the other one, so that it's it swings the right way, but it's not making an angle of the facade. Is that possible?
It would be if we were building the space out from scratch, but those walls are all existing. We're
And
trying,
they're brick.
and they're brick and granite faced, so we're trying not to do anything to the existing walls. And the two angled walls are what create the challenge here.
Right. Thank you. I guess in light of that, as I think about it, I am tending more to the inset door. It's just my reaction.
Thank you. Have I missed anybody's opportunity to comment? Okay, I have similar observations from with Mr. Side and Mr. Johnson. I do think it would be important to have the village engineer opine on this. I think there is a slight difference on having a solid wood door and literally no side light at the new restaurant to the south. This is all glass, so there's a small precedent there. I do have a question though for Mr. Kiefer. This swinging door, is that going to be the door not just used occasionally for handicap purposes, but the door that your wait staff brings food in and out of to people on the street? So it will be used quite a bit.
By and large, when we are using our outdoor patio, we are accessing that through the floor to ceiling windows. Because going through the vestibule with two sets of doors, as it is now, has not been, a safe way of handling food and trays. So we go right through the open windows.
Okay, understood. And since you do have a vestibule, theoretically, you do have an airlock. Is it not working? It must not be working to the point that you're, investing in this new, and I know they're not cheap, revolving door and this new storefront here.
Unfortunately, two sets of doors doesn't offer a great deal of protection when it's 15 below zero.
Right.
And, because we want to have the swing on them slow enough not to catch someone moving into the space and catch them on the heel.
Right.
They are simultaneously open. And, we wanted to have the revolver when we started, but they are really expensive. And this is a really fine piece of art, of craftsmanship. It's handmade. We just think it's better for our guests to have that. And I just wanted to point out that, this is an ADA door. This is a door that we're going to keep just for that purpose as much as possible, because once we start using that door for anything else, we've defeated the purpose of having a revolver. And I'm also in the insurance business. We write a lot of use of the public way certificates for the city of Chicago for these doors that swing over the public way. Indemnifying the village of Wilmette through an insurance, through a certificate and naming the village and endorsing the village onto our insurance policy, would that mitigate any of your fears?
Well, if I may respond to that, it does not. I mean, it's nice to have somebody compensated after a legal fight, but the issue really here is pedestrian safety.
I understand, but back to your first comment, I do think that this is an ADA door, it's clear, and it's not going to be in use, but for the times we have to use it.
Okay, I think, Luke, Mr. Stevenson, when you do speak with the village code official, I think that should be pointed out. Thank you for that clarification. And I think today you're hearing our opinions. I don't think we're in a situation where we're going to be taking any kind of motion. So I think you've seen that what our concerns are, what our aesthetic approvals are, but it's mostly the functional and the placement of the swinging door that we're focused on. All right.
Yep.
Really appreciate you coming before us and having the discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to review it with us. We appreciate it.
Okay, I don't believe there's any motion required. Mr. Stevenson, if you could call our next case.
Sure. Next case is 2021 AR 14 for 3232 Lake Avenue. The petitioner is Newport Capital Partners, and they're requesting a preliminary review for an appearance review certificate. They have a proposed outlot building, which would be a new building for the center, and the idea behind that outlot would be to move the existing Starbucks into the outlot building and add a drive-through. One unique part of our zoning ordinance, probably one of the most unique parts of our zoning ordinance, is any new buildings in Eden's Plaza does require a preliminary review by the Appearance Review Commission before any applications can be made. So in addition to just gaining some feedback, the preliminary review is a required part of the ordinance.
Okay.
And Matt O'Keefe is here from Newport Capital Partners. Matt, if you could introduce yourself and anything else you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lucas. I appreciate it. And thank you for hosting me tonight. Pleasure to be here. As Lucas said, my name is Matt O'Keefe. I am an asset manager at Newport Capital, and I'm an asset manager specifically of Eden's Plaza, located at 3232 Lake Avenue. Tonight, as Lucas mentioned, I'm seeking preliminary review relative to a 2,400 square foot build-to-suit Starbucks, which is planned to be situated just south of the Skokie Boulevard entrance at Eden's Plaza. To date, Newport has executed a letter of intent with Starbucks, and both parties are working in good faith to work towards a lease and construction documents. So in conjunction with the preliminary appearance review commission application that I submitted, we also submitted building elevations, the latest iteration of our site plan at Eden's Plaza, and an existing site plan to serve as a basis of comparison to the proposed site plan, or rather the latest iteration. In terms of Starbucks's proposed layout and configuration, I think it's important to note that I've vetted this with Starbucks development team, and they've indicated that this is a newer prototype that you're seeing in the elevations, but is going to be applied and used nationwide. So by no means is this a unique configuration or layout that you're seeing in the documents I forwarded. One proximate comparable is the Wheeling Starbucks located at Dundee and Northgate. And in conjunction with my submission, I also submitted an aerial of that location just to kind of serve as another comparable. I think it's also important to note that how the improvements are situated right now in the latest site plan, the drive-through window is on the short side of the building facing north. And I think that's really to our advantage as landlord, because it allows us to gain some extra drive-through stack length, which would, along the east side of the building, the long side of the building, and ideally that would alleviate any congestion to the shopping center. But this will, of course, be substantiated through a traffic study that would be deemed acceptable by the village. But with that said, here to garner feedback and participate in preliminary review.
Thank you, Mr. O'Keefe. Appreciate your coming before us and giving the opportunity to ask questions and opine. I'd like to start with Mr. Saad.
Thank you. The mailbox getting taken away?
What's that?
The mailbox? Isn't there a mailbox over there?
Oh, is there? I don't know.
I believe that's further
Is that further?
west.
Are you sure?
It's further away, yeah.
I mean, it's after you leave the drive-through window, it's down the next aisle, right? Yeah, I think
Correct,
it's
yeah.
around the corner.
We
Okay.
don't have plans to remove that at this point.
Alright. Yeah, I mean, the other process that we worked with this was a retrofit in the existing buildings. So we talked about the look and appearance of the holistic, sort of the whole system, but this being a outbuilding that's a standalone that's not related to any of the architecture or the vernacular of it. And Starbucks has a branded look of what they're going for. And we're not really showing any signage or any other identifications yet. I'm sure that will come later. It's sort of stripped of all Starbucksness other than materiality and view. I guess, would that ever be taken into account, or is it just the branded Starbucks building is fine? That doesn't relate to the existing entire complex.
So we have limited flexibility relative to the design of the Starbucks. It's fairly boilerplate across all Starbucks. I believe we have some flexibility relative to color scheme, but nonetheless, we do have limited wiggle room when it comes to design, say, because it's really Starbucks's boilerplate design. But something certainly I will keep in mind, note.
I mean, Lucas, it goes to, and I don't know if this is real or not, but the village, like not having any outliner like McDonald's or Burger King because it's a templated building, and this being a templated building, is that not in compliance with Wilmette in the village of what we're?
There's no prohibition or regulation trying to limit outlots being constructed. I think it's mainly there's not the opportunity in Wilmette to do so. I mean, certainly the shopping center as a whole does have a unique character to it, which is consistent. And I know that was brought up when we reviewed the North Shore Pediatric Center, which is the inline space in the shopping center. And I know their original proposal had had some design in there that was inconsistent with the rest of the shopping center. I think being in an inline space made a big difference. This being an outlet building, being closer to Skokie Boulevard than any other building in the shopping center itself makes it different. But there's no criteria necessarily that the village has to say that it has to be the same architecture as the existing. I think that's one of the benefits. It's one of the benefits of having the commission. Having qualified design professionals on the commission to be able to make that distinction. Of course, that puts the hard task on you rather than village staff. But there's nothing in the code that necessarily says the shopping center has to be consistent architecture.
Okay, Mr. Sutter, anything else?
No, not right now.
Okay, Ms. Castellano.
I just want to confirm, so the building elevation, the northeast, that's facing Skokie Boulevard, correct?
Right, yes.
I know there'll be a traffic study to kind of figure out the best orientation, but this elevation definitely looks like a back of house elevation. And to be fronting Skokie Boulevard with a back of house elevation seems, I don't know. I don't know if that's really going to give you the branding that you're looking for. I'm not sure if there's any other options, but that's not what I would want to see driving down Skokie Boulevard.
Let's see.
But in terms of, the materials, I mean, I know it's retail, there's branded materials. So I don't have a problem with the material choices or the design, except for just like I said, I don't know if there's a way to vary the materials along that back facade that faces Skokie, but I think that might be something to look into.
I appreciate that feedback. As I mentioned in my presentation, construction documents are still being drafted, so feedback like that is helpful as we work through these. So that's something we'll definitely keep in mind. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Devin, that's a interesting point. I don't know if it was a rendering error, but if you look at the elevation, it's labeled 2, which is the wood siding, which would be consistent with the other elevations. But the graphical representation has it appearing to be
a 3.
ephes. Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was the intention to have it ephes, or if that was a rendering error. I'm not sure.
That might be a mislabel. I will
Mislabel. Okay. Look,
follow up on that, though.
it sounds more likely that the label is incorrect, but
Right.
I guess to Devin's point, the commission, one of the commission's standards of review is looking at all sides of the building and treating all sides of the building equally. So I think that's a good point that Devin brings up, that even though it might be used as more back of house, having a consistent design across all 4 sides of the building is one of the standards of review that the commission has. So I don't know if the commission wants to weigh in on, if it was a different material up top, if that would make a difference, but that might be helpful for the applicant to know.
Yeah. Well, let's go through our comments by each party here, and then we can get back to that. Ms. Castellano, anything else?
No, that was my only comment.
Okay, Ms. Andrick.
So Lucas, I have to go back to you, and you said that the village has no jurisdiction over this or any kind of zoning or input. So who does? I am a little bit, I must say, I'm a little bit surprised to see this building in the middle of the parking lot on a major corner as you enter the village. My second question is, that is the bank that is shown here in the north west corner. Is that all going to be part of some new garniture or buildings that are going to mushroom over the parking? And I'm asking this just out of need to be informed.
Sure.
I'm not criticizing, I'm not doing anything. I'm just trying to learn what is going on.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I guess when I was talking about the village has no guidelines for design within the shopping center, as opposed to the village center, which does have specific design criteria which you need to meet. For this particular shopping center, in most areas of the village, we don't have specific design criteria. We typically rely on the standards of review for an appearance review certificate. And there are certainly zoning standards. So this proposal, as proposed currently, does need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals because it is an expansion of the square footage. It will potentially need a setback variation from Skokie Boulevard. We don't have exact dimensions of everything yet, but that's likely that will be required. As well as a special use permit for the drive-through itself. So those are all things that the village does have control over. I was mainly referring to the specific materials used in the design. There's nothing in the zoning ordinance that specifically states what materials are required. And to the second point, yeah, it is on the site plan. I don't think it was the applicant's intention to show that as something that is specifically proposed. They're looking at a lot of different options. I think the site plan which they submitted for this proposal happened to be one version where they were showing a bank property, but I'll let the applicant talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas, and you set that up nicely. So there's so we have multiple improvement initiatives planned at Eden's Plaza, and ideally all of those initiatives would move in lockstep. That would make this process a whole lot easier if the just for permitting and titling, but one improvement initiative in particular, which is the Starbucks, has progressed quicker than the others. The others being the redevelopment of the former Carps and Perry Scott box, and to a lesser extent, that 3,500 square foot bank you're seeing in the site plan. So just for the avoidance of doubt, really the only submission or improvement initiative that our intention to vet tonight is the Starbucks just south of Skokie Boulevard entrance. This greater site plan that we've submitted does include a lot of other redevelopment initiatives that we're not ready to pursue at this time yet. There's still a lot of planning going on behind the scenes. But nonetheless, this is still our latest iteration. So we thought it'd be helpful to at least propose or submit a site plan that accurately depicts what we're trying to do with the Starbucks. The bank parcel in particular that's on this site plan, that is a lot further down the road, and we are not at the point to pursue entitlement for that yet.
Well, again, Lucas, I am just trying to share my opinion about this whole thing. Again, considering the importance of the location of this entire parcel and its high visibility, I am actually surprised that Village doesn't have more insight or wants to have a more insight in what is going to come. And is this going to become a sort of a shopping center of a certain look that we all know already for the years? And then it's going to have a whole sort of garniture of various auxiliary buildings. I mean, I find it impossible. I do not think I can vote or do any about this to start talking about the finishes in Starbucks without knowing what else is here in mind. And I understand that you know, needs time to develop and so on, but I feel that I don't have enough information.
Thank you, Nana. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, I share some of the concerns that my fellow commissioners have stated. I think perhaps I want to articulate the view a little more clearly. I'm especially concerned about the back of the building, and it does look like the alley face of the building. And on the other side of Skokie is a church, an office building, and a crown jewel of Wilmette Chalet. And I think it would not be appreciated by the people who use the area. And I think from a branding standpoint, that would be not useful. I would very much welcome a nice Starbucks there, and I truly understand the need and the economics of the template, but over and over again, those things have to be altered. So it's not just the materials to make it look like a unified center. And I agree that without knowing what the rest of the buildings will look like, it's a little hard to say. But I feel very strongly that I could not support an alley view of a building from school.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Has everyone had an opportunity?
You missed someone again.
Mr. Brill.
Yes, you got to keep me on your list somehow.
I need to call on you first. You're so quiet and
yeah, I think
please take the floor. Please take the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm all in favor of Starbucks having an outbuilding, being larger, the drive-through, more visibility. You know, it's good on all those fronts. Where I'm coming from is that Eden's Plaza has a beautiful architectural harmony. Virtually every building, it's red beige brick, horizontal brick. It's these gray horizontal lines going across. And it's a credit to Wilmette. It just looks beautiful as a center. This is totally different. And it's just no one driving by is going to feel it fits with the rest of Eden's Plaza. I've seen other chain establishments modify their designs, their standard designs to fit the community. There's a McDonald's on Green Bay Road in Winnetka. There are scores, if not hundreds, of chain establishments in Southern California that have enhanced or modified their architectural appearance to fit the standards and the visibility of the rest of the community. And I think if somebody were to come along, be it Skokie Boulevard or going into Eden's Plaza itself, and seeing something similar, the red beige brick, the gray horizontals, they would feel good about it and feel about this contributing to the center and Wilmette. And to see something different is a little jarring to me. So I would hope something could be done to make it look like part of Eden's Plaza.
Yeah, I'm sensing a theme, and I appreciate all this feedback because, you know, these are indeed preliminary, and we're going to take this back to Starbucks, and you know, this is very valuable feedback. So I appreciate that.
Okay, and I'll add my comments, Mr. O'Keefe. I think there's a big challenge for whatever entity builds in that particular location you're identifying, and that is that this building will have 4 front facades. And there is not, I will say that I personally, and Mr. Johnson has said it, I would not endorse something that is less than respecting 4 front facades in this site. In the adjacent mall buildings to the north, they have back of house a facade, but it's screened significantly by landscaping. And you really don't see the docks or any of the other areas on that building due to the landscaping. This site, first of all, I assume that when they come back to us, there will be some landscaping that is identified, some signage that we could react to, but that would be much appreciated and frankly required. I could get into some of the details of the information that was provided. The sable colored mortar, I don't know what that is, but if there would be a dark brick with a white colored mortar, that to me would not go over very well. A 27,000 Kelvin light fixture, I think, is not in keeping with where we're probably headed. Just some little things, I think there may be even a typo type of thing. Question is what's the area of the existing Starbucks? Do you know?
Yes, I do. And just let me confirm because I know it's around 1,400. It is 1510.
Okay, so this is a slightly increased footprint, correct? Maybe more than slightly percentage-wise. But one of the beautiful things I think that happens at the existing location is that people in the nice weather sit outside, off of the street, away from cars, immediately south of the store, and it's a nice area. I see that there's a patio here, but you're going to be sitting next to a fairly fast-paced Skokie Boulevard, as well as moving cars around the drive-through. That environment is not going to be as quality as a quality of an amenity as the current location has. So I think as this building and the site plan develop, that should be considered, because I think the residents of Wilmette appreciate that. And frankly, I go by there, maybe once every 4, 5, 6 weeks in nice weather when I'm headed up north to something that has 18 holes on it. And I see the same guys enjoying the Starbucks in a more, so there's a ritual people of Wilmette have in enjoying the amenity of the Starbucks. This new building hopefully can think that through and provide a similar environment. And then the last thing I'll mention is the drive-through and let's think optimistically, and there'll be a lot of cars at certain points. Those cars pulling around will be coming back through parked, and let's assume that the retail itself is successful. They'll be pulling back through a constant stream of cars through parked areas there. So I don't know if there's much agility in the planning of the traffic, but I do think that type of movement of the cars through that lot is going to cause some distress that doesn't exist now. So I might just ask you and Newport to think that through a little bit, because and I don't know what options there are, but I just envision that being a bit of an issue in that parking lot. Mm-hmm. So that's all for now. I think the big issue for us is the overall fit within the Edens Plaza, which I won't go as far as Mr. Vrill did in calling it architecturally beautiful, but it's certainly a stately complex, and then the issue with the four front doors that you have visually. I think that's a big deal.
Loud and clear.
Okay, so again, I think if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Sievertson, we do not have an action to take. We've given our input on this preliminary review. So I should at this point, any concluding comments, Mr. O'Keefe?
I do appreciate the feedback. This is exactly what I was looking for. I'm glad we got out in front of this before we move forward, and we're going to work to address all these points you've presented. But overall, we're still in the early stages with Starbucks, so this was presented at the right time, and I appreciate everyone's time. And we're going to work to address these and come back with a presentation that proves as a compromise based on your feedback given today. So thank you.
Great. Well, I know it's required, but we also know it's time for you. So thank you for being in front of us this evening.
Yes,
My pleasure.
Okay, we will now move to open the floor up for public comments. Mr. Severson, if you could ask if there are comments from any of our media sources, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Sure, just one second. There are no comments from YouTube chat and no comments on Teams chat. And I don't see anyone else on the call. If there is, please speak up. I don't believe anyone's on the call.
Okay, hearing none, I don't believe we have any other applicants with us this evening. So the public comment is now closed, and commissioners, I don't know if there's any ongoing deliberation that we need to have at this time. Is there anything that you wish to bring up relative to this evening's cases?
Can I elaborate again on my original plea? Lucas, is there any way that any one of these properties of magnitude of this big shopping mall could be made more coherent with their plans for the future? I am again kind of bringing, this is a very major part of our village and a very important gateway into the village. And I'm wondering if they come next week and bring, or next month, and bring marble clad Starbucks. I don't think it will be able to make any one of us with our own professional conscience to make any decisions without understanding what they are planning to do with the rest of this. And I don't think that necessarily these new buildings need to match the existing plaza. They could become a new vocabulary, but we would need to know a little bit more into the future. Is that possible?
We've asked that question. No, it's a great point. We've asked that question as well. We know that there previously been interest in some big box retailers to use the former Carson space. We're still confident that there's going to be some sort of large retailer to fill a portion of that space. It's likely, however, that the building is not going to remain in its current configuration. So it's a 2-story, 160,000 square foot building. There are just not any users that are looking for that size as well as a configuration. So it's very likely, and you can sort of look at their site plan that they provided, and they're showing a little bit different configuration. I think they're showing something for planning purposes, but they don't know at this point. We're working with them to try and recruit retailers to the shopping center, but I don't think we know at this point. It's largely going to be dependent on which retailer decides that they want to lease 80,000 square feet. It's going to be difficult, and I happen to believe them in saying that they just don't know what their plans are going to be right now for the rest of the shopping center. I think they're trying. They certainly have a financial interest in making something happen to the shopping center, but at this point, I just don't think they know what the rest of the shopping center is going to hold. For that, what they're showing to be a 3,500 square foot bank space, it's hard to say, but I don't think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be difficult for the traffic circulation to work at that particular corner of the shopping center. I know they put it on there to show, one of many different possibilities. And we were talking to them about, we want to know sort of the scenario where they have maximum build out of the shopping center. What does that look like? So we can sort of plan for parking and site circulation. Because we don't want them to put something on this site where they're proposing the Starbucks now, and that, potentially negatively impact what could happen to the rest of the shopping center in the future. So I think partially they're showing that bank site and a little bit different reconfiguration of the retail just to help plan for the future. But I don't think they know yet. I mean, they definitely do not have a user for that, what they're calling 3,500 square foot bank. They definitely do not have a user yet for that.
I understand what you're saying regarding the big shopping. Obviously, they don't know, and I understand that's a big thing. But I'm talking about this land that is open. And is there any way? Of course, they wouldn't necessarily have to know right now. But is there any way that the village can have some sort of criteria that they need to meet? And under what jurisdiction would that fall? Zoning?
Well, I mean, right now, the criteria that they need to meet is what basically what the shopping center is now. If they want to do anything to the shopping center, it needs to come before the Appearance Review Commission. It needs to come before the zoning board and the village board. But I don't know if we want to place any specific conditions on the design because we do want there to be some sort of level of flexibility for creativity and design. So I think we're wanting to see what issues they come up with and sort of react to that. And that's one of the reasons probably why they put the requirement in the ordinance to have this type of meeting, is to make sure that these thoughts are brought forward to the commission early on before any applications are made. So these sort of concerns can be heard.
So Lucas, if I could just maybe put a conclusion to the conversation.
Yeah.
You're right in some ways that there is not a guiding framework aesthetically or planning wise, to my knowledge. If Lucas is saying that the PUD, which I assume the original mall was built under, has been met, the guidance that we have are the standards of review, the 16 points that the village has in place for the ARC. So we have those, and maybe next time we should be going through those a little bit more systematically. But those talk about everything from the views we all spoke about this evening to adjacent relationships to other existing architecture and buildings and materials. So there's some loose series of guidelines that we do have the ability to benchmark against. So that's to me, Lucas, if I'm not mistaken, the one guiding series of statements or protocols we have.
Yeah, that's great, Charles. That's exactly right.
Okay.
And I think those were designed to produce quality design, but not necessarily dictate architecture.
Well, and then we have to a certain degree, we have the autonomy then to give our opinion and guide. We're not the final authority on certain things, but we as the representatives of the village population need to give our best judgment on reviewing, approving, giving suggestions. So I'd like to, before we conclude the meeting, I'd like to get a confirmation on the next meeting date and time, please.
Yeah, I believe, let me see, I believe it's the 5th of April. Yeah, April 5th is the next meeting, and that'll be at 7 p.m.
Is everyone
Charles?
able to make that?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, Charles, before we adjourn, I have a suggestion about Starbucks to be very helpful to the design group that's putting it together. I'm looking at Google Instant Street Views for Plaza del Lago and the Starbucks there. And it's entirely, all the exterior is off-white, solid. I don't know if it's stone or concrete or stucco or whatever, but it blends beautifully with the rest of Plaza del Lago and the adjacent buildings. And it's not metal, and it's not 3 or 4 colors. It's just one solid off-white all the way across. And if they could think in terms of that for the location of Eden's Plaza, you know, being in the context more of Eden's Plaza, I think many of us would be a little more comfortable.
Can I make one more comment? One thing that maybe we should also consider or at least talk about is that with a building that is surrounded on 4 sides by parking, we're not really addressing bicycle traffic, pedestrian traffic, and Starbucks, especially in Wilmette, is a hotspot for younger people that are not of driving age. And I think, you know, that's one thing that should be addressed is, you know, how someone on bike or on foot could approach this building safely.
Good point, Devin, that we should have given to Mr. O'Keefe, and perhaps Lucas, you could pass that along.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I know our engineering department is looking at ways to add different modes of mobility in this area. So, you know, that can definitely play into those ideas.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Nada Andrick,
Yes.
Richard Brill,
Yes.
Devin Castellano,
Yes.
Doug Johnson,
Yes.
Jeffrey Saad,
Yes.
and Charles Smith.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Good work, commissioners. Thank you.
All right. See you, everybody.